You know, you hear a lot in the marketplace about mixed media. Well, you know, what does that really mean?
Well, one interpretation of mixed media by Spellbinders is mixing jewelry with cutting dies.
That's an interesting mix, isn't it? Well, we've got lots of ideas and lots of products to show you. Come play with us. So here's the whole collection, and you can see there's lots of shapes and things, but each collection has jewelry pieces or a collection of jewelry pieces with a cutting die.
And we have lots of great shapes like squares, ovals, hearts,
circles, and rectangles. So we're going to look at each of these separately. Let me keep them in the order that I need them.
But we're going to start with the squares.
Okay, so what we have is this collection, which are three shapes, three different sizes, kind of nested together. They're separate.
They're separate.
They're just packaged.
You open it up and they come apart,
Yeah.
but it's nice to have three sizes of one shape.
And then this is the cutting die. As you can see, it's going to match perfectly. And then for the tiniest size, in case you want to do small necklaces, maybe earrings, there's a set of 5. So what have we done, you might ask?
With those cutting dies.
Yes. Okay. Here is the first one. And so in this set, we used just 2 of the pieces, and they do have a loop at each end. So let me show you the bottom one so you can see that.
These are called bezels.
They're called bezels, right. And you can see they're a nice metal.
Right. So this was used, 2 of the bezels were used from the 3-pack.
Right.
Of the bezel set, and the cutting dies were used to cut out the paper shape to fit in the back of the bezel. Now these papers come from the Easy Peasy collection. So this is a book we did a couple of years ago, and the designs are really made to fit into microscope slides, into glass tiles, but nice thing, they also fit into the line of bezels. There's all kinds of art to choose from in there, like over 130 pieces or 180 pieces. And what I want to show you first is how you put that together.
Okay.
How Susan put this one together. It works like this. We used a cutting die to cut the shape of a piece of paper. And what Susan likes to do before she mounts that paper in the bezel, here, let me get my craft sheet out here so I can do all of this in one nice little step. Before you mount that in the bezel, Susan says she likes to seal the paper first because you're going to be putting acrylic lacquer on this, crystal lacquer.
Right.
And so she'll seal it just with a glue stick going across the top of it
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that kind of makes it so that maybe it won't bleed. You have less likely to bleed when the lacquer goes across it.
You know, I think in the Easy Peasy book, it will suggest that you can use Aleene's tacky glue. Same idea, just to seal that paper.
Sealing it? Okay, great. So she used that, and I'm going to bring in one, because that one has to dry. I'm going to bring in one that's ready to go.
Okay.
And then you've got the Aleene's tacky glue, and you just put a little of that in the bottom. Now, the reason it's important to do this before you put the crystal lacquer on top is because if you don't, the crystal lacquer will,
seep under it?
It'll get under it, and then the paper will bubble up to the top instead of staying at the bottom.
Okay.
So you really want to get that glued down in there, and just kind of moving my fingernail around to make it flat within there.
Now, if you were using a photograph, you would still use the tacky glue, but you wouldn't necessarily have to seal it unless you used a copy.
Although the instructions with the acrylic crystal lacquer say to use a photocopy of a photograph, because photographs really will bleed with it.
Now, one thing while you're here is that this is a really good close-up of all the bezels. They're this design in that there's a loop on each side, and there are these little nubbins around the edge that I think just give a really, really nice kind of decorative feel to it.
So it's something you have to be aware of. You want to make sure that you have those little loops, the direction that you want to go when you put your picture in, like this.
It's
this one,
so important.
I took some of the artwork from the Easy Peasy set,
and made sure that my rings were on the top and the bottom because that's the way I want it oriented. And as Susan did in her piece, I then took out these baby bling.
And they come like this. There's, I think, 100 on this package for like $1 or something.
Sure.
So,
and they're self-adhesive. They're real easy to just pick off of the page
so
and just set in there.
Yeah.
So they're set in there before we even put the acrylic crystal lacquer in.
And I'm going to scoot this over a little bit, okay?
So here's the 3D crystal lacquer. It's kind of used.
It is. Now, this is similar to diamond glaze or glossy accents. You just want to make sure you do not shake it.
Do not shake it.
Resist that temptation.
The reason is if you shake it, it's going to be full of bubbles, and then so will what you cover. It's going to have bubbles in it.
It will not be pretty.
So I'm going to start by putting this sort of around the edges to make sure that the edges are going to get covered.
Okay.
And you can also, well, I'm going to make sure a little bit's going to get in. And Susan said all she did was just move it back and forth until it goes all over. So that might take you a little bit to get that all over. You can also move it around with your fingers.
I can see it moving as you.
It will move around. You want it covering everything down there. If you use a lot of it, it's going to take a long time to dry. It looks really cool if you use a lot of it, but you can also use just a little bit, and then I am going to move it around with me. This is a real simple thing to do, and then you just wipe your finger off.
And it looks milky now, but it will dry clear and it will dry shiny. So
I'm making sure that I cover all of the little baby bling in the corners, etc. And if you want to show what it looks like after, then you have to let it dry. It's nice to let it dry a few hours at least, if not overnight.
Okay, so your end result is this, and Susan did, she took one of the metal butterflies, and these are from Maya Road, and you can see that they're, as I said, they're metal, and they just do a nice job of kind of perching on the edge there, a little of the baby bling, and it will get in really close so you can see that. And this particular piece of the Easy Peasy has this word on it, I think. And the second piece,
it does. It comes right on the artwork.
And the second piece has another piece of the Easy Peasy with just one of the baby bling.
And Susan put that on there before she put the crystal lacquer on, so that it would be embedded on there. It won't come off.
Right. And yeah, with jewelry, you know, you're going to be wearing it, so you don't want that to go anywhere.
I love the little key pendant down at the bottom.
They're called chest keys, and they come from Stanislaus, which are from San Francisco, and there's a whole collection of them, and they just come in so handy, and I'm delighted. Let's get in really, really close so you can see that little piece, and just what a nice job it does, again, with a little bling on it.
You just attach it with a small jump ring, which we have those too, and put a little bling, and there you go.
So now you could do each of these separately. You could do them together. You could add that third one and make 4 hanging down if you wanted to.
Right.
Or, you know, just whatever you want. We just thought this was a fun way to start with this series of 3.
And you can attach a ribbon to the top. We also have satin cords that work real nicely on these, and chains. And
the bead chain. Okay, moving on to the next style is a heart. Now, in the heart, you can see that this is kind of a primitive heart, and that one side is going higher than the other. There are not little ones in this set, but there is one little one in the collection of 3.
Right.
And Susan did a different way with these, and
I love this look.
Isn't this pretty? Okay, let's get in really, really close.
So that's a bezel within a bezel.
It is a bezel within a bezel, and she's done a couple of techniques in here, and you have those for us?
I do. So what I'm going to show you. Here's the large heart.
Okay.
And
actually, that's the medium heart.
The medium?
Yeah, the large heart
Correct.
you can
That
see
is the
on here.
medium
So,
heart.
okay.
So first, Susan used the cutting die for the medium heart to cut out, and this is from the Rosemary and Thyme paper pack, to cut out a heart that would fit in there. She sealed it first with a glue stick, like I talked about before.
Right.
And after she sealed it, she used this purple encrusted jewel kit around the edges of the heart. It looks like that. So you just use a Versamark around the edges, and it explains how to do it.
Versamark ink pad.
Versamark ink pad, and then some of the embossing powders and some of the elements from the encrusted jewel kit to really make that beautiful.
Now, if you're not familiar with this product, one thing to tell you is that the embossing powder is going to melt just like any embossing powder,
Right.
but some of the other elements are
not
mica.
going to melt. Right,
Yeah,
mica or glass glitter, and they do not melt when heated.
Right.
So you actually have to use the embossing powder to stick it on and reheat it from underneath.
From underneath. That's the part I wanted to get to, is from underneath. And when we have Stamp Camp Week of Webisodes, the end of July, I think it's about the third week of July, we'll have a whole webisode on the
Plus,
encrusted
if you
jewels.
check the gallery, there are some other webisodes where we've already shown how to do that process.
So then after doing the encrusted
After
jewels,
doing the encrusted jewels, then she used, again, Aline's tacky glue to glue it in the bottom. And what's great, see, those cutting dies make it so that they fit just perfectly. But you will, because the encrusted jewels will sort of make the paper bubble a little bit, you're going to glue that down really nicely so all the edges stay down.
okay.
Then she applied the crystal lacquer all over. She let that dry, well, wait a minute. She set that in there. And then this one, which has already been prepared in the same way, and it's got the...
Let's get in close to see that, okay?
She took one of the small hearts. She prepared it in the same way, used the cutting die with the paper. She put the enamel around the edges with the encrusted jewels. Then when you put the crystal lacquer in the bottom of the heart, then she set this one right inside that one and pressed it down right into the crystal lacquer.
Okay.
And then she let that dry.
Well, and then this is a little butterfly pin, a trinket pin from Maya Road, and it is a little plastic butterfly, and she did the same coloring on it as she did with the encrusted jewels and so forth. So that butterfly is white.
Right. She actually had to cut off the metal pin with the wire clippers first.
And then also on both of these projects, you notice just a little bit of ribbon. And this heart does not have the loop at the bottom. As we just said, they all have loops at the bottom.
Right.
Well, this is the one that,
doesn't.
yeah, this exception that proves the rule. But it does have it at the top of the shoulder that goes higher. And so it's going to hang like so. Just really lovely.
It's a great look.
Now, we talked about the cutting die. So cutting die fanatics, you can certainly use them all by themselves. And here is a card done with the 3 shapes. And you can see how that's been done just beautifully cut out of the paper, and then another backed with a second paper and then over the top. And this is all with grapefruit paper.
And this is great. I love that the large one was used so you can get that shadow cutaway to see the medium size and a little bit of a distance there.
And then a smaller one, and then a smaller one. This look of having the hearts trailing in different sizes as they go up is just a really nice look.
I love these accents from the black jewel border dazzles.
Right, and then on the inside, we've got another one of doing with the friends and family dazzles of saying the name of the person or the relationship. So,
Right. And you can use those cutting dies. If you turn your paper over one way or the other, you can get a different direction. In this one, the heart's going this way, and on the inside, the heart is going the opposite direction.
so you'll want to think about that as you're cutting them out. Okay, now we have circles. And so circles, circle cutting dies, and then the 5 small ones, but oh my goodness, we're missing one. Okay, it's going to show up later.
I had to use it.
These measure, by the way, let me see. Can you see over there?
Sure.
There you go.
There we go. So it looks like we have about 2 inches.
Okay.
1 1/4 inch. Now, I'm sure somebody's going to say on TV land, or web land, and about 5/8 of an inch.
Okay, so just to give you an idea of what the sizes are. So here is a pin that has been done simply with the largest one. And you want to talk about that?
So this is great. The largest cutting die was used
Sure.
on a photocopy of a photo. So you've got this large one here. That's what we said was 2 inches.
Okay.
And then Lene placed it in glued it into the bottom of the bezel, and then she went ahead, before she did the pearls, she thoroughly coated it with crystal lacquer and let it sit overnight to dry. It's a really pretty thick coating. Afterwards, she used these tiny pearls and placed them on top of the crystal lacquer all the way around. So you can do it either way, put them on before or after.
Okay, and then did some of the pearls down below and some ribbons. Now this is a pin, so she attached a pin back also with the crystal lacquer.
Crystal lacquer. It's very strong glue.
Yeah, it's not only a sealer, it's also a glue. So
I love the look of these. These are shredded ribbons. So she shredded them in these lengths and then tied them all together right in the center. It's such a beautiful look.
So necklaces, wall pieces, pendants, right? Now we're going to get into our oval set. So we have the 5 small, we have the nested 3, and then we have the cutting die. And are you ready for this? This is kind of amazing. And Gail, you did this. Now, this is on a chipboard label. So this is the size of it. And this is using the Nature's Watercolor?
North Country.
North Country, okay.
One of our newer paper packs.
Okay.
North Country, so you can see the ferns in the back. And I also used one of the toolkits to do a little backing here and for the labels. So I've got journaling here, and these are the buttons, the
button dazzles.
Pearl button dazzles with some pave crystals. But for the actual bezel pieces, I used the oval set. So I used the entire oval set, plus I used one of the small ovals, because it just felt like it needed 3 down at the bottom. And what was fun about this is that I journaled, and then I used the cutting die to cut out around that journaling, glued it into the bottom of that large bezel, and then while the crystal lacquer was in there, I put the crystal lacquer in the next. I used this gold diamond soft.
Flower Soft?
Flower Soft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, gold diamond. They call it gold diamond Flower Soft. And I stuck that right in with the crystal lacquer. I sprinkled some in, put a little bit more crystal lacquer on top.
Wow, I love the texture that's giving. I would not have thought of doing Flower Soft, because I always think of Flower Soft, you want to keep it in its original state. So clever lady.
So it dries nicely, it keeps its shape and everything, and it looks just like little gold nuggets. That's what I like about it. Down in the smaller ones, I did a little bit of several different things. There's a little bit of the Flower Soft down in here. I put one of the dazzles in there before I put the crystal lacquer in. I actually put the pave crystal on after I did the crystal lacquer, but you can see the dazzles underneath the lacquer. In this one, I took a piece of gold baker's twine and looped it around the bottom, put the crystal lacquer on top of that.
And then those little chest keys are dangling
down,
free.
and they're sanded too, so I could get a little bit of that silver to show up. It's real easy to sand them.
Oh, that's nice. And I notice you've got some of the Flower Soft at the edges here.
Just for a little bit more accent.
So let's back up and see this whole piece. And wow, what a stunning piece. So it's, again, you can use them individually, you can mix and match them. We'll go into the rectangle. Now that's our last set. So the set of 3, the small ones all together, and then of course the cutting dies. I do want to mention that Spellbinders did the cutting dies. The bezels were done with the cooperation, and I hope I get her name right, Susan Lennart Casimir, and so just want to give her the credit that she is due. And in this case, we went tiny, so we're using either one of the single ones or the smallest of the 3. And in this one, we'll get in close.
So you've got the smallest cutting die, just cutting that tiny little piece of paper that sits in back. And there are dazzles from the petite dazzles placed down the center of that paper.
Right.
Before you glue it into the dazzle. It's a lot easier that way.
And
into the bezel.
We were delighted to see that they fit. So Live, Love, Joy. A little ribbon is just zotted on top. You can see how the crystal lacquer really gives some shine to it. Also, at the bottom, This is the heart bail, and normally we use this to attach to the back
Attached to something else.
of a glass
A
tile.
really cute little charm.
It does. And these are the Petite Dazzle stickers. So they're petite. They're made to be little, so they'll perfectly fit into these small sizes.
You're going to see those again here.
And there's 163 of these in a package, so that's nice.
And there's one of those chains that
ball
goes on top of
chain.
it. So there's different options for your jewelry.
Now, this is the last one, and this is on a heart glass bottle, so it looks like some rich embellishing's gone on. So this has got the circle, the oval, and the square.
Right, so like one each from the small kits. You can just grab one each of those, because we know you're going to want all of them when you start playing with these.
Now, I'm just going to put a piece of paper. I feel like I want to see this a little bit better, but I don't know how much that's going to work. Okay, probably not a lot.
This is actually a gift bottle. So all of these pieces are linked together with jump rings up to this point. And then if you open the top of the bottle, which, yeah, there you go. Well, you've got one of those satin cords linked to the top. And when you pull it out, it's a necklace for somebody.
Nice.
For showing it in this way, I actually I zotted them to the bottle so that they wouldn't move around. But you wouldn't do that if you gave it as a gift, and then they could just pull that off, and there you go.
Now, do you have all of these connected to the necklace?
To the necklace, yeah.
Okay.
If I were to pull it off, it would just...
Don't pull it off.
But it's just dotted on. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, talk about what's going on in each of these pieces.
Okay, so those Petite Dazzles were what I used in the back here, and I also used foil from one of our foil packs.
So this is the little butterfly or dragonfly, as well as the word bliss.
Bliss.
Okay.
Those are both from the Petite Dazzles. I used the cutting dies first to get the round and the square and the oval shape from the foils from the foil paper pack.
Now in the gallery you'll get the directions for everything.
Then you add the Petite Dazzles. And on this one, I just glued it into the back of the bezel and then put crystal lacquer on top.
Okay.
And in this one, I glued it into the back, added some of the tiny baby bling, and then I put some of the micro beads down here in the base. And I could show you how I did that.
Okay, these are called no-hole beads or micro beads. So they're super, super tiny. You're going to show this?
I'm going to show it.
Okay, let's get it in here.
Briefly, I'm just going to move the jar. Bring in the craft sheet, and there we go. So there it is with the foil and the little dragonfly dazzle, and they're all glued in place already.
Okay.
And then you just take the crystal lacquer, and I'm going to get it ready, but I'm going to do something else first. So here are the micro beads.
And these are the silver ones that are in that pack.
Micro beads. And I'm going to put a little bit into the bottom. Like that.
Okay.
I don't want to do too much. Actually, it might get a little messy, but I want to be able to see the dazzle. I have just enough, so I want to get it just right.
This is one of those things where a little goes a long way, don't you think?
It does. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
so
I'll
we don't
get
want
these
to
out
cover
of
it
the
up
way.
too much. And then holding it at an angle, so I'll have to hold it just a little bit at an angle, I put in the crystal lacquer.
So the crystal lacquer is going to seal it, of course, but it's also going to hold those beads where you've placed them.
Right. And I put quite a bit in there.
Quite a bit of beads or lacquer?
Quite a bit of the lacquer.
Okay.
And then, let's see. Oh, I have a little pokey bit. Okay.
You want a little pokey thing?
Yeah, I want a little
Here,
pokey thing.
let me give you, how about a skewer?
Skewers. So I'll use that to move it around to make sure that I've got the lacquer everywhere.
Okay.
And if any stray microbeads get in the way of that dazzle, I'll kind of pull them out of the way down toward the bottom edge. That's what I did.
Okay.
And to let this dry, I actually stuck a piece of foam tape on the top of the back of the bezel so that it would sit a little bit at an angle when it's drying.
To keep that crystal lacquer over the beads.
And then you let that dry, and it turns out like this one. Turns out like that.
Okay, so quite a treasure trove of things that you can do with the bezels, whether you do the large collection or you do the small collection, and of course the cutting dies. Make it all work.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I wanted to mention just one little thing.
Okay.
I won't show you. I just want to point out.
Oh, yes.
Down here, all the way at the bottom, because there's these, it's fun little things that add so much interest, I think. I took some of the tiny dazzles, the petite dazzles, and I backed them, the ones that had the same shape, on a piece of acetate, like that. So there's a piece of acetate between those two pieces.
Now, what size?
For a
Now,
little charm.
and what size is that circle that you cut?
Oh,
you-
that's not a circle.
Oh.
I backed them. Here, let me show you.
Okay.
It's simple.
Sorry, we're not quite done. We have some other treasure to share.
So I have a piece of acetate.
Okay.
And I have these dazzles. And you pick one that's small, like, for instance, the small dragonfly. You stick it on your acetate, just any old where. And then I have another one that's going to be the opposite shape right there.
Okay.
I'm going to pick that one up with my big fingers, and I'm going to stick that on
The back
the
side.
back side of this one. So here it is. You can see the dazzle there, and I'm going to stick it as close as I can right onto the back of it.
Okay.
And then, because you can't really much see the acetate, then you're just going to loosely cut around.
Oh, so you don't need to make a circle or anything.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I loosely cut around, and in fact, I'm going to leave a little bit of extra over the top of it, because at the top of it, here, let me just finish cutting that up. Almost there.
Oh, you're going to want to punch a hole,
At
aren't
the top
you?
of it, you're going to want to punch a hole with a 16th inch hole punch right above the antenna there. Right above there. And then you attach it with a jump ring.
So if you don't have charms, this is a way to make your own charms. And you did dragonfly, you did a flower, you did a bird. So lots of options. And I think lots of options is what this whole webisode was about.
Right. Lots of jewelry options.